They don't exist. Yeah. Rah! And if you haven't read it, I'm gonna completely shamelessly plug Carrie Elwes's autobiography called As You Wish, or memoir more actually. He wrote it about the time that they were filming The Princess Bride. And it is a fun read. It's an engaging read. It's not very heavy. He's got some great stories in there, especially about Andre the Giant, that I will not spoil because you need to go read the book. But just the backstory and how that movie came to be made and how it kind of flopped at the beginning because they didn't know how to market it. Was it fantasy? Was it adventure? Was it romance? And it was all of those things. And
it was mostly a comedy. It was mostly a comedy.
Mostly a comedy, but they had all these other elements in there, and then obviously framed by the grandfather and the grandson, and they didn't quite know how to do it. But it's become a classic, and I don't think that my kids have seen it. I know they have seen it a couple of times, and they've loved it. I watch it every time I get a chance to because it's so much fun. So much fun. So
that's a really good film. The other thing is that I would complain about the issue, the movie that I would complain versus the book is V for Vendetta. Now, I love the book V for Vendetta. It's based on what would happen. It's a critique of Thatcherian England, and it's based on a premise that wouldn't happen under Thatcher, or was unlikely to happen under Thatcher. But what the Wachowskis decided to do was make it a referendum on the Iraq War and George W. Bush.
Of course.
And it came out around the same time.
Yeah.
And I realized why they were trying to do that, but the scenes that they took directly from the book and put them to film are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome. All the stuff that they added in was just crap.
That's usually how it goes. The most recent adaptation.
I know people who disagree with me 100%. They like V for Vendetta.
I'll
rewatch it at some point, maybe, but I don't know.
I thought it was okay. The most recent adaptation of a movie from a book that I've seen was Ender's Game, and that was okay, but it was very rushed, and I understand why it was rushed because you just don't have as much time in cinema as you do when you to sit around and explore things in a novel. But I also feel like it was a movie that really could never have lived up to the book because there's so much about the main character's inner dialogue that happens in the book that there's really no way to convey in a movie without him like narrating all the time, and that wouldn't have worked either. It would have just been really weird. So I'm not really sure how they could have done that and made it as good as the book. And even the stuff that they did have didn't quite come across as strongly as it did in the book. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff with him in showing him learning to command and demonstrating how out of the box he thinks compared to other people that they just didn't have time to put in there or explain, and that was a problem too. So it's kind of like by the end you're trying to figure out how this kid is supposed to be the savior of humanity. You haven't really seen him do anything in particular that makes him look as ridiculously genius as he is compared to the other people, but it's an okay action movie. But
okay, so I have to ask Brian in the chat room. Okay, nope. He just answered the question. I was going to ask him why, because he said two sci-fi books that were great were The Postman and Waterworld, but both movies with Kevin Costner were too much departed from the books that I was extremely disappointed.
I like The Postman. I think, and I watched a video by the author of The Postman where he talked about the adaptation of the movie adaptation. He seemed to be okay with it. I just have a soft spot for that movie. I think it's just an interesting, fun little movie.
Oh, I saw Waterworld in the theater when I went through this phase of... The first movie I ever saw in the theater was Batman. I believe it was Batman Forever with Val Kilmer. Yeah,
that was the first movie you ever saw in the theater? By yourself?
By myself, yes. So I went and saw a bunch of stuff. Like every weekend, that was like my fun money spending thing. I saw Waterworld, and I can't believe I sat through that entire piece of crap. because I did, and it was awful.
Waterworld was like the first attempt to bring back the disaster movie, and they kind of failed pretty hard.
They failed on every.
And so you would think that that movie would be pretty good because it's an interesting concept. It really is an interesting concept.
I think it just comes down to some things when you try and turn them into live action screen adaptations, they just come across really goofy no matter what you do. You know, it's really hard to take some things seriously when you're not using your imagination. When you're looking at something that physically is there and you're like, that just doesn't quite fit how things should work in reality, and I think that's what happens a lot.
I will say this: it does look like Brian was saying this. It does look like that there was a novel of Waterworld that was released, but it was a tie-in novel that came out. Because just doing some looking at going in here, it's not based off of anything, but there was a tie-in novel that was done by Max Allan Collins.
Okay.
Probably the worst book to movie adaptation I can think of is Starship Troopers, because it totally inverted the whole point of the book.
Yes, but I still enjoy.
I mean, I enjoy the movie. I enjoy the movie just because you know it's just a fun kind of dumbass action movie, and it's got boobs in it, which is always a plus. That was one of the first movies I can remember seeing half-naked women in. Because we had the movie channels when I was a teenager, so we had HBO Showtime and all that stuff. And I would get home from class and I would put the TV on and just flip channels and then find something and watch it. And that was one of the first ones I remember having nudity in it. That one in the Invisible Boy. I can't remember the exact title. I can't remember the exact title of that movie, but it was about this kid who accidentally invents this invisible powder stuff, and he uses it pretty predictably to try and court the head cheerleader.
Okay. No, there was an entire movie done about the frustration to adapt a book, and that was Adaptation, Charlie Kaufman's 2002 book, because I had to try to write a paper on the book that movie was based on, The Orchid Thief, and that was probably the worst book I've ever read in my entire life. It didn't make any sense to me at all, and he tried to turn it into a movie, got frustrated with the process, and turned it into a movie about being frustrated with the process. But as far as other lousy adaptations go, I have not read the book, but I've had people tell me that World War Z with Brad Pitt, the book is awesome, and that the movie is just 2 hours of Brad Pitt chasing zombies or running.
Of course, they are making a
sequel to that. Yeah.
Of course they are. What
I saw that movie. I didn't read the book, but that movie is awful, and it shows all the crap they went through behind the scenes. I guess they reshot that thing at least twice, and I think it was more like 3 times. Like they did it once, and then they went back and they reshot a whole bunch of stuff, and then they went back and reshot a whole bunch of stuff all over again. And ultimately, it's a pretty terrible movie. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry for World War Z. And it says post-production. In May 2012, production returned to Budapest for 7 weeks of additional shooting. The following month, screenwriter Damon Lindelof was hired to rewrite the film's third act, with reshoots to begin in September or October 2012. However, Lindelof did not have time to write the script, and Paramount hired Drew Goddard instead.
Yeah, Lindelof is from the Orsi Kurtzman School of Screenwriting, which is why Prometheus was so terrible.
See, you and I are going to have to disagree about that.
Oh.
I liked Prometheus.
To be honest, I haven't actually seen Prometheus. I've just heard it's
Prometheus
awful.
Okay,
from some diehard Alien fans who are just, and I've seen enough about the stupid stuff that happens in the movie to figure.
Oh, there's some stuff that I have problems with.
The Prometheus school of running away from things.
Yes.
Run directly away from it.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And also there's like other questions that I had that I really wish they had answered that they didn't. But at the same time, if it wasn't based on... Okay, Brian, we're going to have to disagree regarding Battle LA. I loved Battle LA.
I thought it was
but
Battle LA is okay. Battle LA was okay. It was
LA
probably the most passable of all of the alien invasion movies to come out in the last like 5-6 years.
Thank you.
Because they went. There was that one. There was the one with the vagina aliens, which was Skyline that we watched, and because the aliens looked like vaginas, we didn't know it. That one was made on like no budget, and it was unwatchably bad. And
it looked horrible.
Yeah, it looked horrible. Well, it didn't look as bad as some B movies do, but it was just such a bad movie. And there was one other one that I can't remember. But Battleship was the other one. Battleship is sort of a fun popcorny movie, but it's as far as alien invasion movies go, it's so dumb.
So
it's just
all right,
so ridiculous.
So Jock, who is a comic book author, comic book artist. He's a designer too, and he did some of the designs for the Battleship aliens, and you look at some of the stuff that's there, some of the things that he designed, it looks great. But the film itself, if it's Battleship, I don't think of it being, okay, we're fighting a alien invasion. I think of it as, okay, we're at war, and, blow it up. But again, that's what sometimes when you base films on things, you get Pirates of the Caribbean. Sometimes when you base films on things, you get Battleship.
They're making a Monopoly movie, right?
Oh, God.
And sometimes you get Monopoly.
I don't even... No, Hollywood, no. Just stop making movies.
I saw that the other day, and I went, "What is this going to be a story about a bunch of people sitting around in a room beating the crap out of each other because somebody landed on somebody else's hotel?" Because that's how my games of Monopoly always ended.
I'm holding out for the adaptation of Chutes and Ladders, personally. I think that'll be thrilling.
They may have done that as a cartoon. I know for a long time there was this movie that was going to be done on Candyland. I don't know if it ever happened, but maybe they did that as
a movie called The Magic Kingdom. I think that's coming out.
Magic Kingdom. That one I have not heard. The only one that I know with magic in the title that's out now is Strange Magic, and I think that's from George Lucas. And apparently it's not doing so hot. So
yeah, Jon Favreau was going to team up with Pixar to do Disney's Magic Kingdom.
Is it
what with it? Like just to show the park, or have it come to life, or
I don't know. A planned film called Magic Kingdom.
Oh, brother,
Hollywood.
I mean, I love Jon Favreau, but
yeah, that sounds a little dull.
I still never got the chance to see Chef. And I really wanted to see that.
I did see Chef.
That movie was a lot of fun.
Don't go hungry. Eat a good meal before you go, because the food in there is just mouth-watering. Like, you want to lick the screen. You really do.
Major deceptive advertising, though. They make it look like Robert Downey Jr. is in that movie like the whole time, and he's only in it for one scene. And admittedly, it's a funny scene, but it's very, very short. It's maybe 2.5 minutes long. So if you're going for Robert Downey Jr., he's not really in it.
No, I'm going because it looks like a really good movie.
And the one other criticism I had of it was Jon Favreau's affectation that he puts on is really irritating. I found he has this weird affectation that he puts on in terms of the way he talks. It's like really sort of semi-nasal, and it just after a few minutes I'm like, okay, can you just talk normally? I know what you sound like. This is not what you sound like, and this is not doing anything for your character at all. So just stop doing it, please.
Well, we are at the bottom of the hour already. and we are going to take a couple of minutes for a break. But when we come back on the other side, we are going to continue the movie discussion, but we are going to focus on the movie that's breaking records all over the place, and that is Clint Eastwood's American Sniper.